Okay, hello and welcome back to this week's Leadership Circle Live, where today we're going to have a fun conversation about following your heart in business. And I love this conversation because obviously it's what led me to starting Be in the Room and having this conversation. But I also think it's one that's not had enough because when we put the word heart and business in a sentence together, people freak out. I have with me here today the amazing Shelby Fowler Moss. She is the founder of Empire Media. She has been a client of mine since 2019. She's become a very dear friend, someone I trust implicitly to talk about marketing and how to market my own businesses. But one of the things that I have always loved about Shelby is her ability to follow her heart in the business, to create new things, blow things up, start over, go left, go right, based on her heart. So that's why I thought it'd be fun to have this conversation. So Shelby, hi friend.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course. So let's start with just a little bit of an intro about you. Let's start there.
Awesome. Yeah. So I am the founder of Empire Media. I have been in business for, when I counted, it's been almost 6 years. And I say that because for years I freelanced, and then I decided in 2019 to make it like a real business and start building kind of a team and think of it in a more serious matter. I've always been interested in marketing. I am literally the born entrepreneur. So my parents were entrepreneurs growing up, and I watched them build several businesses. And I was the kid that was like selling, tattoos on the side of the road, and I would like make over my Barbies and sell them, and I would sell pens to like I was just a little entrepreneur. And so that really, it made sense for me as I was like in college. I was like, this is just not, it feels like I just don't fit here. And everything that I was studying, I was like, how could I make a business around this? And so I decided to like blow everything up and go with my heart. And it has paid off tenfold. So
that's awesome. So let's fast forward to like 2019, because when your business started, you were offering social media management services to like brick and mortars, right? Like salons and spas were kind of your jam. And since then you evolved into a Facebook ads agency. You launched Vampire Ads Academy. You've kind of dipped your toe in and out of coaching. You host retreats. Like you do a lot of really cool stuff. And like I said, what I love so much about that is your desire to follow your heart. And then like when you create something new, shut it down just as quickly. So you want to kind of talk about the timeline and what inspired each iteration of Fempire since like it became its existence as a social media company in 2019.
yeah, totally. So when I started it, I was offering a lot of things, including social media management. And at the time, I was also offering advertising services to my existing clients. I just didn't know that people did only that.
Oh,
And I had no concept of pricing, or I honestly didn't even think that people wanted that specific service, like, and only that. So I felt in the beginning stages of my business that I had to offer like a lot of things to get people in to, like, it was totally fear, right? Um, and I thought that like I had to offer so many things so that people would come in and pay me for something.
Right.
As I started to research more and I started working with you, I realized, oh my gosh, no, people really are paying top dollar for advertising services. And what I always loved about advertising, and I studied it even before I offered it as a service and I ran my own ads. What I loved about it was the ability to, it was like rocket fuel on organic efforts, right? And I found that it was like this more advanced concept of marketing in general, and I really loved that. So I studied it, and then I only offered that for a while. And I will say that like since the very beginning, I always offered some sort of coaching in one shape or another, whether that was consulting, whether it was memberships. Like I always kind of offered something, whether it be a course or whatever. And my passion, my true passion, I've realized just even in the last year, it's like solidified it for me, is that I love teaching. Like I love teaching. And I'm also a teacher's daughter. So I joke around with my dad. I'm like, it's in my blood. And So yeah, my business has like really transformed from social media marketing agency to advertising agency. And as that grew, I started to think of ways I could serve more people, and how I can really impact more people. And so I've created things based on what my desires were at the time and what I saw a need for. So I always wanted to do retreats. I've always wanted to do like public speaking and conferences, and I for sure see that in my future. I've gotten invited to speak at conferences next year, so that's so exciting. And yeah, it's just been, I've kind of really like allowed myself to follow what my desires and what my heart was wanting me to do. Even though I know that the big name coaches out there tell you not to do that.
Right.
And I certainly listened in seasons, and I felt like I was putting myself in these like invisible fences, and it felt like my business wasn't exciting or fun anymore.
Is that typically an indicator to you, what you just said? Like, is that when you know, like, your heart is, you're not following your heart, when you get into that space where your business doesn't feel fun, where it starts to feel heavy? Like, what are some of the indicators where you're like, okay, I'm ready to, like, there's something else going on here? What is that feeling for you?
Yeah, for me, it's I know when I feel like it the best way I can describe it is it starts to feel very churn and burn.
Okay.
It starts to feel like too much of a churn and burn cycle, and it feels like I always know when I'm focusing so much on numbers in my business and hitting metrics and stuff like that, which is super important. But when I start getting into that, I notice that I stop caring about my people as much. Like that, quite honestly, just being vulnerable here, I noticed that the reason why I started my business and my desire to actually help people and help people create like iconic online presences, that starts to fade a little bit, and it becomes like, how do I get these numbers? How do I get these sales? We need to sell. When I notice that in me, I notice that I'm totally out of balance. And that's when I like slow down and start to think of where do I really want to be? And sometimes that is creating something new, but also I notice a fear inside of me. Like there will be a fear that like, if I don't do it in this very linear way, I'm not going to be successful. I start to hear these voices in my head of, not in a crazy way, but you know, we all have these like little voices.
It's a little crazy, but it's fine. It's normal.
Yeah, but I start to think of like I can tell when I'm not tapped into my purpose of serving people. When it becomes about money and not people, I immediately know that I'm out of whack, and I need to like recalibrate. I need to figure out where I'm at and where I really want to go.
So let's talk about that, because you're also a money motivated human, right? So like, how do you balance that desire of, and I mean, I just know that about Shelby from knowing her. I'm not implying that everyone watching this is money motivated, but I also know that Shelby has like really big goals, which I love more than anything in the world. But how do you balance those two things? Like, how do you balance the need to have the numbers and the tracking and the metrics? Because hell, you sell ads, for crying out loud, right? Like a pretty metrics driven thing, and still keep that heart, that connection, that desire, that impact. How do you find that balance?
That's a good question. So I think here's the thing. What I have learned is that there's not one way to get to the end result. And many times we think it has to be this very linear path, and that's not entrepreneurship at all. And so it's not like, here is the step-by-step thing, and this is what you have to do. What I've realized is that everybody does business in different ways, and you can choose how you want to do it. And it doesn't make, I've seen this firsthand in other businesses, because I've worked with so many 7 and 8 figure businesses online. And I see some of them do things vastly different than others, and they're still very successful. So I think ultimately, for me personally, I'm money motivated, and I definitely have giant money goals for myself and for my family. But I also know that I don't want to get there in a way that is going to sacrifice my purpose. I
Yep.
don't, and my values and time with the people I love.
Right.
And I also know my own like energetic footprint or blueprint in the world. Like I'm not somebody who is going to be working 80-hour weeks. That's not me. And
Mhm.
you're not going to catch me doing that. Some people that feels really good to them and that's totally fine. But
Mhm.
for me, I don't want to, I think you have to decide, do you, at what expense are you willing to create that success?
Mhm.
Does that mean, yes, you can create the 8-figure business in 3 years, but I have 2 little girls
Mhm.
and those years I never get back.
Right.
I heard actually some like a very big business figure say this recently, and he was like saying that he'd made like 50 million or something last year. And he was saying, I realized that I hadn't seen my wife and my daughter like hardly ever.
Mhm.
And he was like, I missed the moments of the first steps and the first words. And he was like, yes, I could build the $200 million company right now, or I could build it in 10 years. Like I could make money now. And of course, we're going to live great and I'm going to set my family up for success, but I don't have to
Mhm.
do it right now. Like I can very much so do this when my kids are out of the home. And I'm not saying that that's what I like
Sure.
anybody should do, but you have to get to a place where you decide like, what am I willing to sacrifice for
Mhm.
this goal?
Yeah. I think that's so important. And it's funny because I sometimes shy away from that. Like even the words that you say, like the feeling it creates in my body. Because and I know you believe this as well, which is why I'm bringing this up. Like this is not sacrifice in a hustle culture way. That's not what Shelby's saying here, right? Like it's sacrifice in that everything comes at a cost, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a cost to our time, a cost to our money, a cost to our energy, a cost to our family, like all of those things. So then it's like it's somewhere there will be an imbalance along your journey, and it's deciding what you want your imbalance to be.
Yes, exactly. But only you can decide that.
Exactly. Exactly. Like for me, I'm a big fan of protecting my energy. This is something that I've learned very recently as I've kind of gone through my awakening over the past year and a half or so. Is like I am so much more sensitive to energy than I was, and I've tried twice in the last 2 months to go to conferences, and I leave, and I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Like that, it was the energy was so all over the map that it wasn't good for me. But it's learning that now I'm like, okay, cool. No more marketing conferences. Those are not for me. They eat my energy. But I was willing to sacrifice the time, right? Like I was like, cool, I'll go to Dallas for 2 days to go to this event, but and sacrifice that time away from my family because I could meet 600 people in 2 days. I was willing to make that time sacrifice, but now I've realized what an energetic sacrifice it is. And I'm like, okay, cool, I'm done with that, right? Like that's a no more for me.
And the
So
energy part, right? Like to add on to that, time, whatever. But like the energy part is then you come home and that same energy impacts everybody in your home. It impacts your whole team. It
yep.
impacts your whole community that you've built. So like that's one of the most valuable things, right? When we think about it, not to get like woo woo, but like time is like a construct, right? It doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but energy like is very real.
Yeah.
And especially when you're trying to get away from me of the hustle culture, when you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to get away from like business has to be work hard, play hard all the time, like when
Yeah.
you're trying to get away from that and then you're in it, you're like, no, I don't want to like hold on to any of that.
But that's what's interesting too is again at this marketing conference I'm looking at my notes because I wrote it down. I thought it was interesting. There was a guy who he's total bro marketer, like proud of it, Lambos in his videos, like he's here for it. But one of the things he says, like if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. So like even the bro marketers who
Yeah.
are renting Lambos for their Facebook ads are still, they're doing it to obviously elicit a feeling and emotion from you so you buy their stuff, right? But the idea of, but is it fun? Like if these guys are having fun and creating that ad is fun and creating that fun, all the things they're doing are fun, it's going to have a better result anyway, because it's enjoyable for them versus, for you, if you're like, oh, the idea of doing anything like that is crazy, then you just don't do it. And I think that's really the point we're trying to make here in following your heart is what's fun for you. Is fun for you working at home in your PJs with your hair in a ponytail. Like if that's your jam, how do you build a business that supports that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because ultimately, we all are entrepreneurs and have businesses to be able to have that freedom and flexibility. But
Right.
what we tend to do is we pull in like our corporate experience and corporate culture into our businesses. And then we feel like how many of us have had jobs that sucked, right? And it's just like we think of it as it's work, it's what I do to pay the bills. Well, is your business that too now? And I think a lot of people create businesses more than not that feel like work. And I think kids have it figured out, right? I feel like little kids have it figured out. And as we get older, we lose that. And then as you get like a lot older, you start to pick up that childhood energy again. But like, why do we have to wait till we're dying to live?
Right. Right. And that's so crazy. So final question before we wrap up, and I'm not wrapping you up quickly because this one's going to take a little while, but it's the point that I want to end on. Is this like the fear of this, right? Like the conversation that you and I are having, and I know this about Shelby, guys, just the time I've spent with her has not been an easy one or a short one, right? Like we have realized this about time and energy and building a business that follows your heart. Frankly, we've both learned it the hard way, right? We learned it by doing the exact opposite of what we're talking to you about right now. But so when you decide to make a decision that I want to follow my heart, and most of the time our hearts are telling us something the polar opposite of what society, social conditioning, business, expensive business coaches, blah, 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 right? Like they're telling you the exact opposite. So like your intuition is pulling you in one direction to follow your heart, but everybody else is like, do it this way. How do you fight that fight, for lack of a better word?
So I'm going to give you like a tactical thing.
Ooh.
I have to be very cognizant about how I start my days.
Okay.
Because when I start my days, like to-do list, going through my calendar, making sure all of the boxes are checked on all the things I have to do, I get into an energy that is very much the opposite of where I want to be.
Okay.
And I think we get into like the do more, and that's going to end in more results, but that's not the case at all. So how I start my days is getting quiet and slowing things down, because quite frankly, as soon as you give it power to like take over, it's very hard to pull yourself back into slowing things down and thinking things and listening to your intuition. Because so many of us have those intuitive hits or the gut feelings, and we just don't listen to them. And so I think trusting yourself is the big part there, because if you're not listening to those, it's because you don't trust yourself. And so my invitation to you is to start trusting them and like test it out. I have found that I'm very intuitive, and whenever I follow my intuition, it's never wrong. It's like the God in me. And so if I listen to that, it's trusting that that is true and it's going to lead me in the right direction. But you have to get slow. You have to start your day slower to be able to listen to that, meaning like sitting down and being clear about what my intention is for the day. And that I want to, like, I start every day and I say, I want to impact and serve as many people as possible today. And I know that that will lead to the results that I want. But when I impact more people, it feels good too. Because how many times have we made a lot of money and it just didn't feel that great? And you didn't feel that great about it.
Right.
And you're coming out of everything with such desperate energy. Instead of like, you know what? The law of reciprocity is, I live my life by that. If I can give an impact, I know that the fruit of my labor is coming. And so I start my day with that, and I start my day getting slow and asking, like, what can I do today? What can I create today? Like, what is the direction for today? Do I have any intuitive hits? Like I'm asking out loud sometimes, and then I just like write it down. And I feel like that starts your day on such a different level than going through just checking things off a box.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that plays into, like, I love kind of the tactical of that. But what I like to look at in those situations is when I see these people doing things a certain way, it's do I want what that person has? Right. So, many of you know my story, but I had a business partner who was once my business coach. And when I first decided to join her program back in 2019, she had what I wanted, right? Like she was the breadwinner in her family. She was, she did all these things. She had retired her husband, like all of these things that I thought that I wanted. And so at that time, but then once I got a clear look of what was going on, I was like, okay, no, I don't want that. And I was instantly out, right? Again, it was like, that is not a price I'm willing to pay. So again, we look at what society says and everybody else, and it's like, well, the roadmap that was made, like how many people do you know are truly happy? Right? Like what roadmap are they following? And is it actually creating happiness, or is it just creating, the same life that looks like everybody else's life? Like if you follow the crowd, you're going to get what the crowd gets. And do you want that?
Mm-hmm.
And so that to me is really the indicator of, yes, everybody else is doing it this way. But when I look at those people in their lives and their businesses and what they're doing, of course, obviously they're what I can see on the internet, obviously, do I want that?
Yeah.
And if the answer for sometimes is no, then yeah, no, I want to do things differently than that person has done things.
I think honestly, what's going to sell, because especially in the coaching industry, you see a huge growth period, right? And it's not going anywhere by any means. It's only going to continue to grow. And the people that are going to win are the people that have expertise, but they share their lifestyle, because people will hire you over the lifestyle you have,
right,
than the person that basically provides the same service or coaching. Like you guys specialize in the same thing. They're going to pick you because they want the lifestyle that you have. And
the values that you have. You said something about values, because I mean, lifestyle is relative, right?
Yeah.
Like you and I, we have tiny humans. Our lifestyles aren't super sexy or fun, but we wear our hearts on our sleeves, right? Like our values are displayed very boldly and are not things that we're willing to fight against to be successful.
Totally. Yeah. Like you're not going to see me going to like on month-long vacations right now in this season of my life, right. But you are going to see me spend time with my kids, because those two humans and my husband are like the most important people in my life.
And I just wanted to differentiate between like lifestyle and values, because I do think as soon as you said lifestyle, again, I'm picturing Lambos and private planes.
Yeah.
Not like you said, dance parties in the kitchen in the morning with your kids, or, not starting your day till whatever time you choose to start your day, and those types of things. So I think that that's important as well. Like it's not the lifestyle as terms of the money and what they have and acquisition. It's lifestyle as far as how much are they working, where are they spending their time? What do they do, et cetera?
Yeah. Quite frankly, I have not hired people this year as coaches because they weren't moms. And that's not to say they weren't extraordinary what they did and they could give me results. It's because I have children and I relate to somebody who can balance a business and have children in a admirable way. And to me, admirable is that your kids don't have to pass you by in the hallway and you don't ask them about the day. You don't hug your kids every day. You don't sit with them and look them in the eye. Like you don't have the impromptu dance parties in the kitchen. I just don't resonate with that kind of motherhood. And I will not sacrifice that for business.
Right. No, I think it's so important and so funny. I'm going to end with a dance party story, and then I'm going to let Shelby tell you where to find her and where to follow along. And I highly suggest you do. So my kids are 5 and 3. And so like Georgia basically was a COVID kid, right? Like she was 9 months old by the time the world shut down, and she didn't learn how to eat in a restaurant or anything. And she's feral by all. So this past weekend we go to a Halloween party, and it is literally the first time my kids have been to a party like that, where there is like music and dancing, and my children did not leave the dance floor once. Like, I have videos for days. I need to post them on social. Like, both of them are just like cutting a rug. Like, Davis lost his costume at one point in time. He's like, I'm hot. Like, then he's just in like shorts and a t-shirt. Like, they broke it down, but it was so funny because I realized, like, oh, we've never done this, right? Like, we've never gone to a party or a wedding or an event where there was a dance floor for children other than my kitchen every morning. Like, that's literally like, we don't care that there's people here that we don't know. Like, we're just cutting a rug like we do in the kitchen every day. And it was so funny and it was so cute. But it made me think of that. Like, where did that come from? They didn't know anything other than they do that all the time at our house.
Yeah, it's really good, like, healing too. Dancing is like a great way to release trauma as adults and all kinds of stuff.
It's so funny. All right, Shelby, tell everybody where to find you, where to spend more time with you, where to learn about all the incredible things that you do.
Yes. Okay. So you can follow me on Facebook. You can friend me on Facebook. I will add you as a friend. You can find me Shelby Fowler -Moss. I'm also on Instagram. We just started a new account because of the bots. And so you can follow me on Instagram at I'm Shelby Fowler. And I'm happy to connect. I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, Shelby, thank you very much. For those of you here with us live, thank you for being here. For those of you watching this on the replay, make sure you go find and spend more time with Shelby. Not only does she share her lifestyle, she's also a brilliant marketer and business strategist. So you should follow along. And thank you guys. We'll see you next week.